so much for the warmth of welcome and the very beautiful things that have been said tonight about my time here, which have moved me to tears on multiple occasions. I feel I have the unenviable task at the moment of being the last speaker at the end of some really fascinating talks and conversations, but I know that you're all probably quite hungry, and so I'll try not to take up too much more of your time and attention this evening. My task is also unenviable because I come after such an inspiring talk from Surya, and I thank you for that. It's also a point of coincidence for me because only yesterday I was at a farewell that was hosted by the EU ambassador for me, and I would have to say that at least half of the time that we spent together having lunch, we were talking about sweet fix, and I have to say I hadn't come across it before, but I was told in much detail, in delighted detail, about the joys of sweet fix, and so I'm putting on my bucket list in my last 3 weeks here. I need to sample your products, but congratulations on everything you've achieved, not just for yourself, of course, but for the entire country and for the inspiration of your story. So let me return to the things that I need to say, that I've prepared to say. First of all, a very deep thanks to our immediate past president, Mahesh. Thank you for the invitation to join you tonight. And to the distinguished guests on the dais, to the distinguished new executive, to our AAERI members. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so delighted to be with you. And this will be indeed my last AAERI AGM. So I wanted to offer my congratulations to the new executive committee led by the new president, the new immediate past president. Is there such a title? So here we are again. Congratulations, Dwaraj. Great to see you once again in this role. But I also wanted to thank the past committee because I know that you have worked very hard over the previous period. So it's a great pleasure to be with you all to mark another year of AAERI's very strong support to Nepali students and their families, and to look ahead to the next year of cooperation to promote both the Nepal student brand and the Australian education brand. And it seems like only yesterday that I was joining AAERI at the AGM in 2021, and it was in the middle of the COVID pandemic, and I recall that we met in person but we were all masked up, and it was one of my very early engagements with dear friends in the education sector. And in the 3 years since, we've seen a lot of ups and downs. We've worked our way through COVID and border closures, which I know put a terrible strain on students, their families, and on the industry. And we've since seen the exponential rise in students applying for and taking up study opportunities in Australia immediately after borders reopened. But now we're also seeing the implications of Australia's new migration strategy unfold. And I realise that this is a very testing time for everybody. And again, I thank Mahesh for really outlining some of the challenges that you're experiencing. I appreciate the honesty of the conversation that you have initiated tonight, and I'm very glad that I had colleagues from our Department of Home Affairs here to hear that conversation and to take back your reflections, because I think it's so important that we maintain an open conversation. But throughout all of these cycles, the level of cooperation and collaboration between AAERI Nepal and the embassy that I've been leading, I feel has remained really solid, and I've deeply valued my engagement with each of you. Your feedback to me, as well as to the visiting teams of immigration and education officials from New Delhi, has helped me to to do what I can to advise on policy as it's being developed in Canberra and to try and shape those policies more positively as they're being designed. Sometimes we have successes, sometimes we don't, but it's really important to be able to feed back what you're experiencing here at the coalface in the market. So I'm really grateful for your commitment to that and to build a very strong Nepali student brand that's characterised by integrity and also your efforts to help maintain a strong Australian education brand. And against the backdrop of these ups and downs, we've seen new momentum in the relationship in many other aspects of it, including in that government-to-government space with exchanges, but also in the people-to-people linkages. Our diplomatic relations are built, of course, on that most important foundation of these links, these people-to-people links. There is a human bridge between our countries, which I believe has widened and it has deepened. And it continues to do so, I think, with every passing day, largely because of the engagement in the education space. And according to the most recent Australian government data, the Nepali community in Australia is our fastest growing migrant community. It is now the 9th largest migrant community. It's jumped one spot in the last year. And we have over 180,000 Nepalis who have now made Australia their home. And my friends in the Department of Education have also recently advised that at the moment there are 56,000 Nepali students in Australia enrolled in Australian institutions. But I would expect that if I was standing here in a year's time, that number would have dropped somewhat significantly, which worries me. And I hope that this is just a short-term trough in the cycle. I appreciate that we do want to work towards steady growth, but I also hope that we are looking in the near future at an upwards trajectory once again. The government-to-government engagement is very important because when I have Australian ministers come here, when they learn more about Nepal, when they understand the country better, I think it makes them more capable of formulating good policy and policy that benefits both countries. So in 2023, I was really pleased to be hosting our Assistant Foreign Minister, Tim Watts, here. It was the first of such ministerial visits in more than 3 decades, and so it was a particularly important one from my point of view, both symbolically but also for substantive reasons. And indeed he had many conversations about the education sector, which I think have been to the benefit of all of us. Minister Watts used his calls on Nepal's leadership to emphasise the value to both Nepal and Australia of these educational exchanges and cooperation. He underlined Australia's commitment to provide a world-class education to Nepali students, as well as a very safe and happy experience for those studying and living in Australia. He spoke of the deep affection that Australians have for their Nepali students and for the diaspora community, and he emphasised that Australia encourages the Nepali students it's hosted to return to Nepal and to contribute to the country's development. And then in October, as was mentioned, we had a visit by the Speaker of the Australian Parliament leading a delegation of 5 parliamentarians here. They were delighted to meet with alumni and to see how a quality education from Australia is underpinning Nepal's development, its growth, its prosperity. Then in November, the former Chair of the National Assembly, Ganesh Timul Sena, took a delegation to Australia. We also hosted Deputy Mayor Sunita Dungol on a special visits program across 4 Australian cities. So we're seeing momentum in the relationship, and all of these engagements speak to Australia and Nepal's rich and thriving friendship, and this includes important and close connections in the education sector. But we know that international education brings both opportunities and challenges, and I'm regularly having conversations with government and with industry about the impacts of the brain drain in Nepal. And my response to these concerns is that I see international education as brain drain leading to brain gain for Nepal. And of course, this does require Nepali students to return home and to find good employment opportunities and business opportunities, leadership opportunities here. And this in turn requires strong, responsive and effective government policy on the part of Nepal's leadership. So I wish Nepal political stability and good governance to take forward the development and implementation of sound policy that would be the foundation for the country's prosperity, and that would be also attracting Nepali students back home. We have been running a campaign, #ComingHome, with our alumni, and it's a pity that Surya didn't study in Australia, because I'd make you our poster boy for that campaign. But the messaging that you delivered tonight is the same messaging that we're really trying to promote across the board, with students who are going out to Australia, with students who are there at the moment, with students who are considering coming back, and those who are here. And the point you made about the fact that often coming home is regarded as a failure, I have heard this over and over again. So what we're trying to do with our Coming Home campaign is to emphasise that coming home is an indication of success, and it points to the future success of the country. You've had the opportunity to hear from Jade and Catherine on the pressures that Australia has been navigating and the policy responses. And I won't speak any further to this other than to say that I've heard and I've registered the challenges that many of you have raised with me. And I wanted to emphasise that the doors of the Australian Embassy in Kathmandu are always open to all of you, any of you, when you feel that you have issues you want to raise with us. We are very keen to hear from you as we navigate these new policies and their implementation, the implications for students, the implications for you as agents and counsellors. And I'm really happy to convey your feedback to Canberra. This will continue with my successor on my departure.